It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, drastic measures to try to prevent the breakdown of the prison system. The government steps in, saying jails will be completely full by November without action. Among the measures, a limit on the recall times for some offenders and money for 3 new prisons. Also today, a timely reminder of the emergency in UK jails, with another 5 prison guards injured in violent attacks by inmates. Coming up, I'll be speaking to an ex-prison officer who was stabbed with a broken bottle and now campaigns for better protection for her former colleagues. Also tonight, a mother faces her son's killer in court. 7-year-old Archie York died in an explosion at a block of flats in Newcastle in October. It was caused by gas canisters inside a cannabis factory in the flat downstairs, being run by drug dealer Rhys Galbraith. Plus, the hardest conversation. We hear from 2 people, both of them terminally ill, on opposite sides of the debate on assisted dying. And a British soldier is laid to rest 108 years after his death, thanks to the war detectives from the Ministry of Defence. Well, that's come and much more on the UK Tonight. England is on course to run out of prison places for adult men by November. That, the stark warning from the government today, announcing emergency measures to free up space and avoid what the Justice Secretary called the breakdown of law and order in this country. Men's prisons are running at 99% capacity. To tackle this issue, the government says some offenders recalled to jail for breaching the terms of their release will now serve just 28 days back behind bars. Ministers say that is going to free up 1,400 places. And they've announced billions of pounds today for funding for 3 new prisons. But critics say that does nothing to solve the current crisis. Sky's lead politics presenter, Sophie Rich, has this report.
Old, underfunded and overcrowded. At this Victorian prison in Preston, they're clear. Britain's prison system is on its knees.
We are overstretched, under-resourced, and people are constantly just coming back into custody. The prisoners that we're releasing, they're coming back in weeks later, and we're having to start all over again to try and get them things in place from when they do get out.
6 months ago, emergency measures were introduced to release offenders early, but now a stark warning from the Justice Ministry's top official.
On our current trajectory, the prison population rises by 3,000. And now we expect to hit zero capacity to entirely run out of prison places for adult men in November of this year.
The new crisis is forcing the government to spend big.
This is a total capital investment of £4.7 billion. It allows us to start building 3 new prisons.
But it's not the spending that's going to be the most difficult thing, although that will also be tough. It's the politics.
The public seem to want prisoners locked up for longer, according to the polling. Are you prepared to be unpopular?
The thing I'm prepared to do is to make sure we never, ever run out of prison places again.
Are you prepared to be unpopular?
I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to keep this country safe, to make sure that we never run out of prison places and that we never see the collapse of either the prison system or our wider law and order system in this country, and that we never put that at risk ever again.
The new measures aim to free up around 1,400 spaces, but we've already got a sense of the fierce political fight to come.
She's focused on releasing criminals early who have reoffended or have breached their licence conditions. If she brought forward measures to get foreign criminals out of our prisons or to get our courts sitting 7 days a week, we would back her tomorrow. If she brought them before Parliament, we would be here sitting tomorrow to support her. We know the situation is difficult, but she's making bad choices, and these are choices that are going to put the public in danger.
The thing that I'm left thinking about, though, is this. They're still talking about building more prisons, they're talking about running out of places, and that's why they need to bring the reforms in. If they were really brave, what they would be talking about now is making these reforms because it is the right thing to do. And I can't help thinking that unless they are willing to have that fight, which will be difficult, don't get me wrong, then are things really going to change?
This is the moment when we will see the colour of this Keir Starmer government. Is this real change or more plastering over the cracks? Sophie Ridge, Sky News.
Well, Sky's Molly Malone has been following this story for some time now. And Molly, there does seem to be another renewed sense of urgency from the government this week, more emergency measures from them. But the big question is, what kind of difference is this going to make?
Well, that's the question. We wait to see what type of difference it will make. The background to all of this, as we know, we've been hearing about for months now, is overcrowding. And it is a big backdrop. We're at a serious situation in prisons again. 99% full are the male estate in England and Wales. So the headline announcement today was about recall, just to spell out what recall is. That happens when people get released to prison and then called back. And it can happen for a number of different reasons. One, for further offending, but two, for kind of breaching licence conditions. So they are strict kind of attachments when people leave prison that they have to follow. The majority of recalls at the moment are happening for breach of licence conditions. So that might be not turning up or missing a probation appointment or not reporting that that offender has changed address, rather than reoffending. About 25% is for reoffending. And it's a big part of the prison population. So around 13,500 people are currently in prison for recall. That's 15% of the total population. So that really gives you a sense of the problem, if you like. The changes that have been made today are basically extending the people that are eligible for short-term recall. So that's when you go back into prison for a short period and get released, rather than previously what happened was if you were serving a longer sentence of 12 months or more, you'd have to convince the parole board that you're safe to be released. Now those people won't have to convince the parole board, with a few exemptions. But clearly, for victims and victims groups that have seen over the last 18 months policies like early release, well, that's a concern, and they feel that prison overcrowding is being prioritised. We've heard from the Victims Commissioner, Baroness Newlove, who said in the last hour or so, victims will understandably feel unnerved and bewildered by today's announcement. It is the latest series in a series of short-term stopgap measures prompted by chronic pressures on prison capacity. The cumulative effect has been to corrode confidence in the justice system and undermine victims' sense of security. As I said, remember, these are groups, these are victims that have seen early release for the best part of a year now. So clearly of concern are these types of policies. And it is another sort of emergency measure, if you like. Meaningful reform, the government will say, is coming perhaps in the sentencing review, an independent review, but one commissioned by the government. And David Gauke is carrying out, looking at recommendations to essentially send less people to prison over the course of the next few years, perhaps. But they're having to respond now because overcrowding, they say, is causing violence. We keep hearing about vicious attacks on prison staff, a 15% rise in the last year alone. So that's the backdrop, but clearly none of this comes without risk and without political jeopardy too.
Molly, thank you. Molly Malone there. Well, we did learn today that 5 more prison officers have been injured in violent attacks by inmates. These latest incidents taking place at Woodhill and Gartree prisons, and add to the calls for prison guards to be better protected in the UK. I've been speaking to one former prison officer who knows all too well about the violence that can go on behind those walls. Claire Lewis was stabbed with a broken bottle while simply doing her job. Now Claire and her partner Jed, a former police officer, are calling on the government to make protective gear mandatory for all prison officers. I sat down with them a little earlier today, and I began by asking Claire what happened to her.
We had problems the evening before with a disruptive prisoner. On the evening before, he had barricaded in his cell. On the Saturday morning, we went in to work, and I was working on that particular landing, and he got on his cell bell and he asked for treatment because he had seen the nurse and staff coming onto the wing. As I went to unlock the door, he grabbed the door forcefully and flung the door back and shot out at lightning speed and plunged a weapon into my colleague's arm, which hit the brachial artery. All I saw was blood, and an absolutely horrific amount of blood from an arterial wound. And then he turned at me and he said, "I'm going to kill you." So I turned and he chased me along the landing. He was running at such full pelt, he then took a swing at me and stabbed me in the back. And I heard the weapon snap, and
This was a broken bottle.
and this was the broken bottle.
What means did you have of protecting yourself in that situation? You mentioned batons.
Yes. All members of staff, all that they had was an extendable baton.
That's it.
That's it. No protection equipment, nothing. No tasers, no sprays, nothing.
I'm going to bring your partner, Jed, at this point. Been together for over 30 years.
Yes.
You were in the police. You then went into the prison system. Jed, describe the difference as to how you and Claire left the house equipped for your similar roles.
Well, it's a case of the police had evolved protection for the frontline staff. When I joined, it was a tunic, heavyweight pants, a wooden truncheon, all handcuffs. In no time at all, we were first issued with slash-proof gloves. That was the first thing. Then body armour came in, extendable batons, CS spray. So I was fairly well protected. So we had sort of...
And this is standard issue. This is what you would
this
leave
was
the house in
everyone.
every day to do your job. And meanwhile, Claire, what were you leaving the house in every day to do your job?
A pair of black work trousers and a white shirt.
Frontline staff in the UK are attacked every 2 minutes. This is NHS workers, teachers, police officers, prison officers. That's according to figures that have been analysed by our colleagues at LBC. It's shocking when it's put that way, but not unsurprising to either of you. You have lived through this environment. You have seen the vulnerabilities. What is it you're trying to do? Because you've started a petition to garner public support to provide better protection for prison officers. Tell me a bit about what you're pushing for, because the government have it under review.
Yes. It's taken me a long time to deal with the process of, one, almost dying, two, almost leaving my children without their mother, and ultimately losing my career. And I feel that if I can't have some voice in this incident and put things forward to try and raise awareness of the vulnerability that prison officers are in, then who else can? I've essentially got the T-shirt for this.
Yeah, and you're living with the consequences. Jed, you brought some items in because it's simple items that can keep prison officers safe. We're not talking about elaborate pieces of equipment. Show us some of the pieces you've brought in today that you think should be standard issue.
This is slash-proof material. So this is slash and puncture-proof. It's lightweight. It doesn't look...
I felt it. It feels like a normal
It just feels
jumper.
like a normal jumper. UK-based company, and I think these are in the region of £240. Now, surely someone's life is worth that.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why that would be available in black. Could easily replace the prisoner suit fleece that most of them wear daily. I've also brought in a lightweight stab vest. Now, this gives a higher level of trauma protection. It's like an armoured plastic, so it protects from blows, puncture wounds, slashes, covers all your vital organs, weighs less than 2 kilos. It can be worn all day. Now, you see, Claire did a campaign with the POA when she was first assaulted, asking for body armour and protection for staff, and the government response was it was too oppressive towards the prisoners. So what we want to do is point out, well, listen, that argument doesn't hold any sway. You can get materials. It's a UK-based company. This is available. And is it all just down to a cost implication?
The government are looking at better protection for prison officers. They're looking at body armour and tasers. That's under review.
Yes.
Claire, if they don't do something about this, is someone going to get killed?
Yes. The type of inmates that are housed currently, you have an awful lot of extremist prisoners who are serving very, very long sentences, with some who may never, ever be released from prison. So what have they got to lose? Nothing. And somebody will lose their life unless something is done, and something is done quickly.
A final question. The Justice Secretary talking today was talking about short-term measures to alleviate the pressure on the prison system, and she was also talking about longer-term fixes, record prison building, for example. But one of the measures she was talking about was people being sentenced to less time in prison, particularly those reoffending. That came out today. She wants to reduce the sentence of those reoffending. The suggestion being that these short-term fixes may be making prisons a little safer in the short term, but communities less so. Both of you have worked in the police force, so I'd be really interested in your view on that.
Generally, people are in jail for a reason. A prison sentence is often the last resort. There'll have already been rehabilitation orders, community service orders before they get to that point. Once someone enters the prison service, you know, or goes to jail, their life really stops. Who would employ someone who is coming out from a prison service, a repeat offender? It's just a merry-go-round. They come out, they commit offences, they go back to jail. We just need more spaces and stop being soft on crime.
Yeah. I don't think it's the answer to release prisoners early, because then the knock-on effect is you're putting the onus on the probation service. The probation service don't have the staff to monitor these people, because these people have to be monitored. They're not just released from prison. They have to be monitored on tags, and they don't have the staff. They don't have the hostels. They don't have the facilities to house people who are being released early from prison. And it won't solve the issue of the assaults on staff.
Well, my thanks to Claire and Jed, and you can find their petition by searching for Claire Lewis, it's Claire with an I, on change.org. Well, we did ask the Ministry of Justice to respond to their campaign, a spokesperson telling us, "We will do whatever we can to protect our hard-working staff." The Lord Chancellor has announced a review into protective body armour and a trial of tasers in jails to better respond to serious incidents, and will set next steps out soon. In other news today, a drug dealer who killed 2 people when his cannabis lab exploded, including a 7-year-old boy, has been jailed for 14 years. Archie York was sleeping when the blast ripped through a block of flats in the Benwell area of Newcastle in October. 33-year-old Rhys Galbraith had been making cannabis sweets in the flat downstairs. Addressing him at his sentencing today, Archie's mum told Galbraith that he didn't care who got hurt and he killed her son. Sky's North of England correspondent Katie Barnfield has this report.
A devastating and deadly blast. Last October, equipment at a secret cannabis lab exploded, destroying entire flats on this Newcastle street. One of those was the home of 7-year-old Archie York and his family, who were asleep directly above the lab.
I had closed my eyes and kept opening them repeatedly, thinking, it's a nightmare, like, why aren't I not waking up? And the reality was, the nightmare was my life.
Catherine, her baby son and partner survived, but Archie didn't make it out alive. Their family home became a crime scene. Keepsakes of Archie turned to ashes.
We weren't allowed to see him, hold his hand, have their memories that were lost. We had everything, his pictures, his drawings. We got him cremated because the way I see it, I was buried and it's not nice. So I didn't want to put my son in the ground because I've witnessed being buried.
At this moment in time, you're under arrest on suspicion of manslaughter.
The lab was being run by 33-year-old Rhys Galbraith, now jailed for 14 years for manslaughter and drugs offences. He ran it with 35-year-old Jason Laws, who died in the blast. They were making butane honey oil, known as shatter, a concentrated form of cannabis often used to make gummies, using butane gas to extract the oils.
You bear responsibility for all of this loss and destruction. It was your dangerous and selfish criminal activity, ignoring the risk to others, that caused it.
In court, as Galbraith was being sentenced, Archie's mum read out her own victim statement. She turned to face him in the dock and shouted through tears, "This was a choice, your choice. You ran a drugs operation under the floor where my children slept. You killed my son. The type of canisters used in the lab on Violet Close are easily available in shops and online. Catherine now wants a change in the law to restrict their sale.
They are so easy to buy, and if there was a law to prevent, like, let's say you can only have a packet of gas bottles a week and show identification. If this is what I can do and prevent more families going through what I'm going through, like, that's just enough for me, and that'll keep Archie's name going strong.
As he jailed Rhys Galbraith, the judge said Archie's family will never get over their life sentence. Katie Barnfield, Sky News in Newcastle.
Still to come on the UK tonight, we sit down with two terminally ill cancer patients on opposing sides of the assisted dying debate. Plus, the war detectives who managed to track down the family of a World War I soldier after his remains were discovered in Belgium. And homes blasted in Gloucester thanks to this burst water pipe.
Show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
The assisted dying bill suffered another blow today, with the Royal College of Psychiatrists withdrawing its support due to concerns about the safeguarding of those with mental illnesses. MPs will debate the bill in Parliament again on Friday, and it's a highly divisive issue inside and outside of Westminster. We've been speaking to two people, both of them terminally ill, but with very different views on this issue. We brought Claire and Philip together, and they agreed to share with us the hardest of conversations. Just to warn you, this special report from Sadia Chowdhury contains descriptions of assisted dying and suicide throughout.
Bristol Central means next stop in a few moments' time.
My name's Claire and I live on a gorgeous farm in North Devon, and I've got two fabulous daughters, Chloe and Izzy. I'm travelling up to Bristol today to meet a man called Philip, who I haven't met in person before, but he is against assisted dying, and I've been campaigning for the assisted dying bill to pass through Parliament.
Claire is 60 years old. She has stage 4 breast cancer and doctors have stopped giving her chemotherapy. They say she could have just months to live.
It's a good place to live and a good place to die, I'd say.
Last year, Claire was in a Sky News report on assisted dying.
And I will trust in you.
The piece also heard from Philip, who lives with his wife Pauline in the Midlands. Philip has pancreatic cancer and he too could have just months left to live.
In you alone.
The ice to the right, 330. The nose to the left, 275.
Sky News has been following both Claire and Philip as they watch the country debate legalising assisted dying. Today, they're on their way to meet each other to let the country watch them debate.
We'll be discussing the things for and against the assisted dying bill, or assisted suicide as I call it. And I'm against it because as far as I'm aware, our times are in God's hands and we should be looking to him.
There's a swallow going over. That's the first one I've seen this year. We're halfway, I think, between each other's homes. And yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting someone with different opinions than I've got. And yeah, very interested in hearing what he's got to say.
Wait a minute. Wait. Dear me.
Hello, Philip.
Hi, Claire.
Hello.
It's lovely of you to come.
It's so lovely to meet you.
Lovely of you to come.
Oh, I'm feeling a bit strange. I'm on a huge dose of steroids at the moment.
Right.
And it's making me go a bit nutty, so you'll have to forgive me, Philip.
You might fit in with me then.
It's like, who would want to live forever, really, in this world?
For Philip, the idea of dignity in dying was embedded decades ago when he saw his mother put her trust in God.
She said, I can't remember the exact words either, but God, please either heal me or take me. And I realised that really my mum must have believed in God and trusted God. I keep saying to the doctor consultants when I see him, I keep praying that God will stop it growing.
I would like to have the choice that at a time and place of my choosing, when death is close, to be able to take something to hasten my death.
There could be a cure for what you and I have got, but we just don't know about it.
There are amazing
So you don't know what
advances.
miracle is just around the corner, and if you commit suicide, you're robbing yourself of that opportunity.
Philip isn't planning for death as much as he's planning for life after it. He's spent his life preaching his Christian values. He enjoys music, his garden, and having his family over. Claire is aware these could be her final days. Her days are spent on her farm, visiting flower shows and with her daughters.
So we went out, obviously broken-hearted. We rang the kids and told them.
Was that the hardest part, Philip?
Yes.
Yeah, for me as well.
Yeah.
Telling my daughters.
Since their diagnoses, both have different approaches to life.
My liver is 20 shades of grey on a scan.
Yeah.
And, yeah, all of my bones pretty much, except for hands and feet and...
Horrible.
And then I had docetaxel to begin with. Did you have any docetaxel?
I'm very, very grateful. I've refused all.
Have you not had any chemotherapy?
I've had nothing.
Yeah. I can absolutely... If I hadn't got the girls, I wouldn't have had anything. Yeah, I can understand that. And I think that, for me, it's about being able to let go, to feel safe, to feel secure.
Once you've drunk that, my friend, you cannot change your mind.
And
what
for
about the poor
everyone,
suckers who are there with you? They've got to live with the fact that you died and they let you.
Oh, my daughters are...
Whoever.
So I would if they want to be there, I'd like my daughters to be
What I'm saying
there.
is, it's easy now to say, I'll be with you, Claire, and I'll sit there. But a year from now, after you've gone, I'm thinking, I could have persuaded her not to.
With the greatest of respect, because you don't know my daughters at all.
I don't know anybody.
Yeah, so...
I don't even know myself.
my daughters are completely supportive of assisted dying.
You're saying I want to end my life now. I want to be in control.
Now, I'm not saying now, Philip.
Yeah, okay.
I'm definitely not saying now. I'm enjoying
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
meeting you too much.
Well, I'm glad about that. That's the same here. That's what I say. I mean, don't forget, I was given 6 months to live. Last year, I should be dead.
But the proposed change of law covers a very limited number of people.
They're not.
And at the moment, over 300 people with terminal illnesses take their own life in pretty miserable situations, quite often alone, quite often unsafely every year. This is an absolute decision about myself. It's not about other people with terminal or life-limiting disease. It's certainly not about people with disabilities. It's certainly not about any other person who's struggling in life. But it's purely an option for Claire Turner.
I can follow that, but the snag is that if they alter the law for Claire Turner, they've got to alter it for everybody. And you've only got to look and see what's happened in other countries. Canada, originally, this is the criteria. Now it's much wider. Belgium, much wider. Holland, much wider. Holland, I seem to remember, is now even talking about young people.
Yeah, I'm going to go and wash my
You've
tomatoes.
always wanted to wash tomatoes. You got up this morning thinking,
I'm not allowed
really
to
looking
eat
forward
them,
to washing
but I'm going to look forward to washing them. Oh, they do smell. They smell good, so I shall enjoy that. It's been interesting meeting Philip, but I feel quite tired, which I hadn't expected.
She's not suffering as much as I thought she would be, which I'm very grateful, because it's horrible to see people are suffering.
Perhaps he really thinks I'm a sinner and he needs to save me, and I don't need saving.
She could present her thoughts as scientific, but you could only prove it if you come back from the dead and say, I died, look, I'm all right. Which ain't going to happen.
There's a bedroom there if you want to go and lie down or relax or do anything.
Won't wake up again if I go to sleep. You're going to have
Well, that would be ideal for you, wouldn't it? That would be natural.
Yeah.
That would be God's timing. It's financial.
Okay.
Nothing to do with what's right and wrong, it's financial. You can save millions of pounds by getting people to bump themselves off.
Theoretically, that's true.
Yeah.
But there are safeguards, and actually, this law is so limited.
If it's costing hundreds of thousands to look after you, just think what we could save if we bumped 20
But you're
of you off.
being really cynical.
No,
and
I'm
you're
being honest.
I'm finding,
I'm
you
sorry,
know, doing that and
I have
rubbing
to
your
deal with
hands
finance.
together.
I deal with the tax office.
But I find that quite offensive, Philip.
Well, I'm not
I
really
do
offensive,
not
but-
believe that I belong to a country with the medical profession and with our community and our society that want to bump people off.
Yes,
in the
but the
medical
point is the
profession.
change to the National Insurance Health Act will be not only to treat people for care, but also to help people end their lives. That is a drastic change.
Which is why we need an organised path forward, which is safe, which is regulated.
I accept that's your view, but I'll just say my understanding is that that's not how it will work out.
Okay, Philip.
You know,
Yeah.
and
I can hear, and it sounds like you're pretty fearful around that.
no, I'm fearful for the people. You know?
I guess I'm just not a cynical person. I'm really
I'm not a cynical person. I'm actually facing reality.
There's just enough time left for both to exchange gifts before heading home.
For
Au
you,
revoir.
young lady.
Let's say au revoir, Philip, rather than
Au revoir.
goodbye, shall we?
And when you look at those chocolates, I was going to get you Rose's chocolates because I thought you live in the country and you like flowers. But if you read what they're called...
Oh, what are they called?
Heroes.
Heroes.
Because I think anybody who is battling with cancer is a hero not to quit.
Oh, thank you,
Because
Philip.
it's very easy to quit.
This honey is made by my dear neighbour. She's called Pip.
Philip and Claire have very distinct, opposing views around death and dying.
In faith, I'm going to trust in God. Amen.
But it is clear they both share an energetic love for life. Sadia Chowdhury, Sky News.
Interactive tree.
Well, Sadia, who brought Claire and Philip together, joins me in the studio now. Sadia, that was a very full and rich conversation and just explores the complexity and the nuances involved in this debate. They parted on good terms there, exchanging gifts, but it's just an illustration of just how complicated this issue is.
Absolutely. And can I just start by saying Philip and Claire are just two really incredible, amazing individuals. It's been such a pleasure getting to know them over these last few months that we've been filming with them. They're the type of people that make the world a better place. And you might have noticed that neither of them spoke about suffering or burdens, you know, the traditional things that we hear when people are talking about assisted dying, but really actually made my crew laugh when we filmed this. They talked about life and death in a really good way. So it was a really refreshing way to look at this issue, which is so important. And you just see why it's so important to those two individuals as well.
Yeah. And this conversation has happened ahead of the next stage, this latest stage, so much more to come on the assisted dying bill. But it's worth reminding people watching at home what stage we're at and what's going to happen this Friday.
Absolutely. It's a really important week in the assisted dying issue. So the bill returns to Parliament this week on Friday for another debate. And you may remember the last debate, which was last November, which had an absolute majority of MPs supporting it. So it looked like pretty much a done deal at the time. But that was the decision in principle, the bill in principle. And since then, there have been 3 months between January and March when experts came and gave their evidence about it, but also members of the public, which is pretty unprecedented, were able to write in letters about their thoughts on this. And there have been amendments, I think a total of something like 29 amendments. And many people are concerned about those amendments, the removal of the High Court judge, for example, then today's pulling of support by the Royal College of Psychiatrists. So all of these things are now creating a sense that perhaps the bill won't have that those robust safeguards in place that some MPs initially thought they might. And there is an indication from some MPs that they might have changed their minds.
OK, well, Sadia, thank you so much for bringing that conversation between Claire and Philip to us. You can, of course, follow what happens on Friday right here on Sky News. Sadia Chowdhury, thank you. As does come here on the programme, the remarkable story of a British soldier finally laid to rest 108 years after his death, thanks to the war detectives from the Ministry of Defence. British soldier has been buried with full military honours in Belgium, 108 years after his death in the First World War. Private John Tame died in August 1917. More than 100 years later, his remains were found during roadworks near Ypres. In step, the Ministry of Defence's Joint Casualty and Compassionate Centre, otherwise known as the War Detectives, who tracked down John's great-nephew, who provided a DNA match to ensure Private Tame could finally be laid to rest. Well, I'm joined now by Keith Brooks, great-nephew of John Tame, and Rosie Barron from the MOD's War Detectives Unit. Good evening to you both. Thank you for joining us to tell us the remarkable tale of Private John Tame. Rosie, I'll come to you first because you enter the story at the discovery of remains in Belgium. Talk me through the process of discovering his identity.
So the remains were discovered by Belgian archaeologists during roadworks, as you said. Once the Belgians had produced a report about the artefacts they'd found with the soldier, they handed the remains and the artefacts to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. And it's from the Commonwealth War Graves Commission that the case will come through to us. So we knew we had a soldier. He had a shoulder title and a cap badge of the Royal Berkshire Regiment. There was a pair of binoculars found with him that also indicated he was likely to belong to the Royal Berkshire Regiment. And there were lots of other artefacts, which, as it turned out, were slightly red herrings in trying to track down the identity of the soldier. But one crucial thing that we also knew about the soldier was that he had evidence of having been wounded in his left shoulder previously. So we were able to narrow down the list of candidates to soldiers who had previously been wounded. With Private Tame, we'd actually already DNA tested, I think, 11 or 12 other candidates first, and we eventually found Private Tame. His date of death was actually slightly wrongly recorded in CWGC records, which threw us off to start with. But looking at the case again and again and reinvestigating it, eventually we spotted him and looked at him in more detail and realised that actually, although he was recorded as having been killed on the 19th of August 1917, he had in fact gone missing on the 16th of August 1917, which was the date we were looking at. And that's the point where we got in contact with Keith, and he very kindly agreed to provide a DNA sample for us.
Yes, Keith, talk to me about that. Was it a phone call? Was it a letter, the War Detectives getting in touch? Because obviously you and your family know your family history and Private Tame and his brothers Alfred and William, who also served in World War I. So your family were aware of your family's history, but what was it like to get this news out of the blue?
Well, it was literally news out of the blue. It's such a surprise to just receive this letter. And we just went, wow. Yeah, just thinking, oh, this would be really interesting if anything comes about. And if it is John, then we've got to go, basically. So I corresponded, we've done loads of emails, me and Rosie, backwards and forwards about various stuff that we might have and details. And the story just went on. It was just amazing. Then we started frantically digging through what we had in our family archive, which a lot of it's out in Australia, actually. But we pieced things together. And the most amazing thing was it's just so nice after all this time that suddenly this photograph came to life, really. And we got more history and details as time went on.
And I would imagine it's been incredibly moving for your family as well, because you travelled to Belgium for his funeral and it was with full military honours. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because you attended it along with soldiers from the 2nd Battalion, the Rifles. It was a funeral with full military honours. Talk to me about what that was like.
Well, it was a great honour, and it's I mean, it's quite detached from us, but there's a lot of curiosity. And ultimately, you think of what his poor mum went through, losing 3 sons and 2 on the same day during the First World War, which, as we know, was a horrible war, like most wars are, but it's the first proper modern war with, like, massive different ways of killing people in a horrible way, sort of thing. So, and we had a bit of interest within the family of that period and stuff going on. So yeah, we went over there and we're completely overwhelmed with the support and affection from the local people and all the rifle guys, all the MOD. It was done with a lot of affection and respect, because a lot of it related to even the guys in the ceremony were roughly the same age as John, which is just fantastic because it made them think, and they were so proud to be part of it that it became a sort of collective celebration in some ways in his memorial. And so nice that in this day and age that these things are still going on that a lot of us don't know about, but Rosie and her crew and all the military still do, which is an incredible thing to do.
Yeah, Rosie, you know, you hear Keith there describing your work as incredible. The JCC's role includes identifying the remains of British soldiers in historic battlefields around the world, as well as identifying and rededicating graves of those who were buried as unknown. These wars, these conflicts may have taken place over a century ago, some more recent, some older, but just talk me through the work that you and your team do. How many identities are you working on at any one time, and where does this take you around the world?
So, well, I mean, how many cases we're working on at any one time is, of course, we react when remains are found. So we've had a few big projects in the last few years. So there was a big, a new hospital built in Lens in France, which is basically on the Loos battlefield. So we've had a lot of casualties recovered from that one site. Other cases are like this, where it's just one soldier found completely by chance on a sort of innocuous-looking road junction somewhere in Belgium. Most of our work is on the Western Front in France and around Ypres, but we also cover the Second World War cases as well. So that takes us a little bit further afield. So next month we'll be in Normandy and down near Le Mans, and up in Arnhem as well, and in the Netherlands. So we do go further afield, occasionally to Germany. Last year, some of my colleagues were out in Korea, holding services for Korean War casualties. So we do get about, but mostly it's the Western Front and France and Belgium, just because of the sheer numbers still missing from the First World War.
Yeah, of course, that's important to remember, isn't it? You identify as many as you can, but hundreds of thousands, no doubt, still to be identified, and their families alerted of their whereabouts and given burial as your work continues. Rosie Barron from the JCCC and Keith Brooks, the great nephew of Private John Tame, the soldier whose remains were found recently in Belgium. Thank you so much for your time on the UK Tonight. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
This has come on the programme. Houses in Gloucester pummeled by thousands of gallons of water, all because of a burst water main. We'll have the details. And should there be a change to the offside rule to help avoid serious injuries from taking place? This and the rest of the sports news next.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
They are pushing forward, trying to get people to disperse.
What Prince Harry wanted to do was to eject me.
Is that your opinion?
It is. It is.
They were serious, coordinated attacks.
It's an entire generation that will have to contend with the horrifying impacts of this conflict. The number of patients is increasing.
It's been quite some day.
Hey, what country are you
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country?
You've gone viral.
I've ever had such a reaction.
It's just incredible.
Since the Oval Office meeting, have they reached out to you?
If Ukraine asks for help and its allies decide to help, then that's the end of it.
Criticism of you, the president, is banned. How is this a fair election?
A historic day here today.
Beth Rigby from Sky. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more.
There could be some more painful decisions to come.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I'm Alistair Bunkle, Sky's Middle East correspondent based here in Jerusalem.
The only way into Gaza for us right now is with the Israeli military.
We've just reached the centre of Khan Yunis.
The IDF had brought us in to show us a tunnel network under a residential neighbourhood.
At the end of the day, it's war up the top. It's war down here.
Sky News, get the full story first.
The Premier League run-in is live on USA and streaming on Peacock. Only 2 matches remain.
The climax of the Premier League season.
Friday, exclusively on Peacock. Top 5 hopeful Chelsea host Man United. Sunday on USA. Newcastle continue to fight for Champions League qualification when they visit Arsenal. This is the Premier League run-in. Live on USA and Peacock.
Hello, welcome back. David's here with a look at today's sport and some big news from the Premier League over the weekend after that injury sustained by Nottingham Forest striker Taiwo Awoniyi. And it's been raising some big questions over the future of the offside rule. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, OK, so let's get this together. This is all to do with something that happened in the 2-2 draw between Nottingham Forest and Leicester. So
yeah, let's explain the situation first for those who don't know.
Right, so Taiwo Awoniyi, he's involved in an attacking phase of play for Forest. He's trying to get on the edge of across from Anthony Elanga. Now, what happens is that the assistant referee just makes sure that the flag is down by the side and doesn't flag for offside. And it's part of the protocol now for offsides, that you let the phase play out. But of course, on this occasion, doing that meant that Taiwo Awoniyi, you can see he's carrying some momentum, then ends up sliding into the post. And it was, I mean, listen, this doesn't get any easier to watch. Apologies if you find this kind of troubling, because it is, and the result of it has been particularly concerning, because sources say that he ruptured his intestine, he had to have abdominal surgery, and he was placed in an induced coma.
So he could be treated and
I mean, ironically, when this incident happened, Sarah-Jane, they weren't sure whether he was actually OK to play or not. They thought he was OK to play, and they didn't sub him off. Turns out, obviously, he had suffered a horrific injury. So what has offside got to do with it? So here's the thing. Basically, because of this protocol, the assistant referee didn't flag for offside. Had they flagged for offside, the play would have been stopped and Taiwo Awoniyi wouldn't have kept running and he wouldn't have collided with the post. But because of this protocol, it has been a factor in then what happened after that.
Is this a freak incident? Has this happened before?
It is the most serious of the incidents that has happened before. We've had incidents before with Edison, the Manchester City goalkeeper. John Stones has been involved in one as well. There've been a few others, but this is by far the most serious. And understandably, there's been some significant reaction to it. Former Premier League referee Keith Hackett said this practice does expose the risk of players to injury. Farrell Williams, former England midfielder, one of his capped players, said this has been a time bomb waiting to go off in terms of someone getting seriously injured, and Awoniyi got that horrific injury because of it. And obviously, because of the nature of where offsides are, they're towards the extremes of the pitch, they're nearer the goalpost, etc. But in any case, obviously the main thing here is we hope that he's OK. We wish him well. He's in the induced coma. We'll keep an eye on his condition. In terms of other sporting headlines, there is a British tennis #1 who's been up till now doing well on the red clay of Rome. We'll give you an update on him in just a couple of moments.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Dowling's idea about coaches is an interesting one. 42% of Premier League first-team coaches across the last 6 seasons have been English. 56% have been British. The Premier League are also committed to coach development, launching an elite coaching plan in 2020 with a clear philosophy: better coaches lead to better players. Through that, they've supported 480 coaches and coach developers over the last 5 years. Alongside that, there's the Professional Coaching Partnership, bringing together the Premier League, FA, EFL, League Managers Association and others to offer further support for coaches. The League Managers Association, which represents managers in our top 4 divisions, told us they run a significant number of qualifications and personal development services for English coaches, all of which are oversubscribed.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
We just wanted to bring you these pictures tonight from Gloucester, where a burst water main caused this huge jet of water, there it is, raining down on unlucky homeowners there. Residents of Matson woke up to this scene with Severn Water saying the burst pipe is one of the largest in its network. Certainly looks like it, doesn't it? Homes were without a water supply, you'll be unsurprised to hear, and the ground was even torn up by the sheer pressure of the water. Severn Water says its priority is to keep supplies on while working to fix this pipe. Right, let's have a quick look at the weather, shall we?
The ideal atmosphere, whatever the altitude. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
The warm, dry and sunny weather will continue this week, but eastern coasts cooler and cloudier. Away from the cool and breezy North Sea coast, most places will have a fine evening with any heavy showers across Devon, Cornwall or the southwest of Ireland fading away. That leads to a mostly dry, clear and chilly night. Low cloud and spots of drizzle spreading in from the North Sea to much of central and eastern parts of England. Most places fine and dry tomorrow.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
That's all from the UK tonight. Matt Barbette will have the programme for you tomorrow night at 8. Up next is Yalda with the World Live from Doha.